Hey, it's Drybear, and today I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to know to get started in Sons of the Forest, the newly released early access version of the sequel to the original survival game, The Forest. But because I love survival games, and part of survival games to me at least is the discovery and the learning aspect as you go through the game, I'll split this guide into two distinct parts. The first part of the guide will go over general mechanics and function, things you need to be aware of and what to look out for, but we'll be excluding anything that is spoiler or focused on discovery. This will include demystifying mechanics like crafting and what the icons mean and what the UI means, but nothing to do with the story and not giving you any major direction in where to go. And the second half of the guide will be more detailed for people that don't really care about the discovery as much. They just want to know, point me in the right direction, make sure I know what's going on, and give me all the tools that I need to succeed. So let's jump into the guide. If you found value in this video, leave a like down below. It helps me out tremendously. Subscribe for more gaming content. And as always, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say hi, or your fingernails will start to grow at 4 times the rate for the rest of your life. So let's begin with the no spoiler version of the guide. First, let's talk about landing in and looking at the UI itself here. So I just made a fresh play, a fresh save, and let's look at the UI down in the bottom right corner. Starting with the dials on the inside. If you look at this red bar here, this is your health bar. If red goes to 0, you die. This over here is your stamina, which will start out at max, and then your max stamina will slowly decrease as you stop taking care of yourself in various ways. And then these hash marks, these little like bars here on the outside, are the current armor that you have. The first circular icon here is your level or your strength. As you perform actions in the game, your level will increase, which affects your other stats and has other bonuses as well. Largely, you can ignore this. It just means that as you play the game, you will get stronger and various things will happen to your character, which isn't really super important to talk about right now. The next one, the water drop, is your drink, your amount of thirst. As this gets lower and lower, it will affect your overall stamina. The next is your hunger. Again, this gets lower and lower and affects your stamina. And lastly is your restfulness, your how tired you are. So your maximum stamina here is actually a combination of all 3 of these. So if you're very thirsty, but you're well fed and have rested, then your max stamina is still going to go down. And if you want full max stamina here, you'll need to fill out all 3 of these. You drink water or drinks in order to bring the thirst back up. You eat food, and then you also rest in a bed, which there are a few ways to do. Now let's dive into keybinds, because it's actually pretty rough. I've seen a lot of players get stuck on this when they first start playing. You press I and will open your inventory, which is the inventory here. You can bring items to the center of the mat to craft or combine them into different options, but on the outside is everything you have in your inventory. If you make a fresh save, it will make you learn how to open items like this, bring it in, and then you have the cogwheel, which is just like the first game. You click this in order to combine items or open them if they are a pouch. In this case, when you first start a save, it will give you your GPS map, it'll give you an axe, it'll give you your guidebook, and it'll give you a lighter, which you can use to make fires or to show light during the nighttime when it's really dark. So pressing I brings out your inventory. You can actually pan this screen. So if you pan over to the sides, you'll be able to look around. So if there's something that's missing that you looted and you don't know where it is, you'll be able to see it here in your inventory. Just make sure you look all around. Generally, this is going to be outfits on here. You'll have tools and tools and human items here. Then you'll have your electronics here. This is more tactical gearing. And then you have your other options here. And then down here is usually for the herbs and stuff like that you gather as you go along. To see what you can build, you can press B, the letter B, which brings up your guidebook. It has 2 different versions to it. If it's held in your right hand, this is your general basic needs, things like tents, campfires. You can page through this. You can also go through these. If you switch modes by pressing and holding X, it'll go to your left hand, and this is your building mode. It's less essential. It's more for fun. Then that way it's separated for people that are just trying to do a survival experience. Then they can do so by looking at the right side. And then if you look for more building and fun stuff, you can find that on the utility side, which is held in your left. And you can swap between these by holding X. A weird thing that exists right now is you have to activate the same button to close a menu for all menus. It's kind of frustrating, but just get used to it. So for B opening up your guidebook, you have to press B again in order to close it down. Pressing L, as in llama, brings out your light source. When you start out the game, you just have the lighter, and there's other options later on. And when you have this lighter out, it will actually give you some illumination. It's not great, but it's enough to get you through some really dark scenarios where you have no other source of light. It also allows you to start fires and feed yourself that way, which is pretty nice. And if you want to get rid of the lighter, you can press L again as well. You also have a GPS device. Not only do you have the mini map in the bottom right underneath all of your personal health meters, but if you want to bring out your GPS and hold it, you can press M. Pressing M brings it up so you can look at it, and you can actually hold other things in your right hand while you do this. So you can grab like the axe, and you can have it, and you can check on that. One thing to keep in mind though, which I actually see very few people are aware that this works this way. When you have the GPS out, you can click in your middle mouse and it'll cycle through a zoom option for the GPS. So sometimes when you have it default zoomed like this, you might be missing things off the map, points of interest that you want to go investigate. You can zoom in to see what's close to you, but you can also just cycle through that using middle mouse button to see what's around you and get that extra zoom there on the map. Super easy, super clutch. When you have an item in your right hand, left click utilizes the first version of it. Right click will utilize the second version of it. And we'll talk about combat in a second when we're talking about weapons that can be used for combat. And movement is the same as any other first person game like this. Control gives you crouch. Shift allows you to run, which will burn stamina. And then you can jump using spacebar. In your crafting menu, you can put items into the crafting area by right-clicking it if it's something that can be combined with something else. Once an item is in the crafting area, you'll notice that the items that cannot be combined with it will get this gray overlay on top of them. That means that they can't combine with the current item. To remove it, you can just right-click it and bring it out. So if you hover over it and it just says equip, you can't combine it with anything. It's not something that combines, and then you can explore what those options are. You can put things that can combine inside of the crafting area. If you're looking for recipes, all you have to do is hover over the cogwheel icon. This by default will give you some suggested ideas for recipes. There's plenty of recipes you can discover. We'll talk about what those are in the non-spoiler version is now. When the spoiler version is next, we'll talk about some of the crafting things. We'll leave that out for right now. You can put those in. You can see what you would need in order to craft whatever item that is that you have available that you can pick up from that. Also in your inventory, if you feel like it's too dark, you have these options here for power on. You can light these up, and then you can press light color to cycle through RGB if you want to personalize it and make it look cool. The next option that you have is your backpack up here. This is an exclusive item. You can bring it into your general area, and this can be thought of as your quick select inventory. It's a quick select bar. It doesn't have any quick options like buttons or keybinds for it, but you can equip things into your backpack that you would want to access quickly without having to bring up your whole inventory here. And you do so by not pressing I by itself, which brings up your inventory, but instead holding I for a second. It'll bring out your backpack, and then you can go and select from the things that are in your backpack. So you'll be able to kind of pick through the items that you find are necessary to be picked up in a pinch when you're in combat or looking for something or quick access. You can use that with your backpack by holding I, and then you bring up your whole inventory by pressing I. Continuing with the spoiler-free version of the guide, your goal is to stay alive first and foremost. So you need to make sure that you don't run out of water, you don't run out of food, and that you don't become overtired, because that can affect you. So there are plenty of sources of hydration around. You can find water sources or other items you find as you explore. Same thing goes for food. You'll find wildlife that you can interact with and use as sustenance if you choose in various different locations. You'll have to figure out how to do that. But you can also find herbs, fruits, and plants that you can interact in the world. There are 3 different icons that you'll find on these when you walk up to them. You'll find the icon of itself, but when you go to pick it, it will have either a question mark like it does here, which means that you haven't consumed this naturally occurring plant or fruit before, which means you don't know what effects it'll have on you. You don't know if it's good. You don't know if it's bad. You can then grab these and then go into your inventory and eat them, and then you'll find out. You'll see whether it gives you a positive or negative effect and what effect it'll give you. And then once you are done, every time you see that thing again, it'll either have a red Pac-Man icon showing that it's bad for you, or a green Pac-Man icon, which means that you are able to eat it. So blueberries are an option here. You can eat it and you'll get an icon from that, which will tell you whether or not it is edible. If an item can be interacted with, it will have a glowing sheen on it. So if you see it from far away with no prompt, you'll see it glow, which means that you know you can interact with it. Otherwise, if it's interactable objects that is built in the world, like trees that you can harvest, they'll be built in, and then you'll have to find a tool that you can use to interact with those and do whatever you need to do. And then you'll get icons for picking things up. If you come upon an item that can be picked up, you have two options. You can either press E to pick it up, or you can hold E to equip it. So if you want to have it in your hand right away and you want to be able to use it right away, you can hold E to equip it. Otherwise, grab it using the E button and it'll go straight into your inventory. The game will cycle through seasons, all 4 seasons, and in winter, it is very possible that you find yourself getting cold. You have to warm yourself up, otherwise you'll have a negative impact on your stamina plus other negative impacts. So you can do this by standing near a fire or by holding a torch in your hand while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. When it comes to looting, there's a few options for getting loot in the game. Firstly, your spawn location is relatively random when you first start a save. You'll find items like these, which are options that will give random loot, and these do regenerate over time. So after time, you just hold E to open it, and you'll get loot inside of these. This is the can eat, is edible green Pac-Man I was talking about earlier. You can collect those, and you'll find after a while, these will start to come back. So if you play for a long time, you'll be able to revisit campsites to get more loot out of these, and that's why they're contained like this, so that they can randomly generate the loot that comes out of it. However, there are key items on the map that are not random and are one-time pickup that you'll need for your story progression. So those are all in fixed locations and will always be there when you have a story, and you'll have to figure out what those items are and where to get them. And keep in mind that you will sometimes get pouches, just like the first one you opened when you started your save. You'll open it the same way, put it into the area of crafting here, hit the cog wheel, and it'll open and give you loot from it. Just be able to look out for pouches that give you loot. And if you're playing solo or with friends, luckily you'll never be alone because you have your friend here, Mr. Kelvin. So he lands with you when you first start a save. You'll rescue him. Unfortunately, the crash damaged his eardrums, so he is unable to hear, and it's possible damaged far more than just that, but he is a good helper nonetheless. And you'll see this when you first land and look at the helicopter. You'll go through an animation, and you can have Kelvin do things for you. He generally won't fight with you, though there might be some ways to do that later on, but you can talk to him and give him orders like collect resources for me, go find food for me, or follow me, or clear areas, or craft things. And this is the menu that you get. You can bring this up anytime you go talk to Kelvin. You can have him clear areas, you can have him take a break, stay, follow, you can have him build things like shelter, you can have him get things like fish, which is super nice for food, or rocks or sticks if you're building, or you can have him take items, because there will be items that you can give him that you'll find throughout your discovery. Luckily, Kelvin is immortal. He can't permanently die, but he can be incapacitated by enemies that attack him, so you probably want to take care of him, as he is one of the bestest of boys you could ever see. The first time you die, if you haven't died recently, you will be sometimes strung up by the locals, which means that you're tied up to a stick or in some position somewhere on the map, and you will have a chance at another life before you die permanently. So when you find yourself in this situation with this fixed camera, just look down at your feet. You'll get an icon to use your knife, rip yourself out of the situation you're in, and then you'll see a yellow icon, which is your entire inventory. Whatever you had on you is still there. It's your full backpack. So what you want to do is you want to cut yourself down when you feel like you have a free moment and there's no danger. You can go ahead and cut yourself down, pick up your backpack, and be on your way as you continue your story. On most difficulties, if you die a second time after having been strung up recently, you will die permanently, and then you will have to load a save or start a new character in order to progress from that. And lastly, I'll close out the spoiler-free section with a general push in a direction. So what you want to do is bring up your map, and you can cycle through the range. You'll see there's all kinds of icons that you'll find on the map that are various things. So your goal is to visit these points of interest, figure out what they're about, and try to progress through that. Note that there are plenty of them on the island, especially when you zoom out. They are all connected. There will be requirements that you may have to revisit them when you have unlocked new key items. So just kind of explore the world. If you see these stone arches, that's a cave that you can explore. The green dots are main story progression, and the purple dots are they are one-time collections that you want to go to these. They'll beep when you get nearby, and then you'll have to do something when you get there in order to get the dot to go away. Every other POI will stay permanently. The purple ones are one-time interactions, then they're done, and once you do what you need to do at that spot, those will go away forever. So that's what you're looking to do, is just live, survive, and go to the POIs and check things out. And that concludes the spoiler-free section. I'm gonna get into more detailed gameplay mechanics and give you more of a solid foundation for where to go, what to do, and what to look out for. So if you're looking to just explore everything yourself, you can jump off the ship now. But if you're wanting more help with how to play the game, let's dive into the actual detailed portion. Starting with what we just talked about, the POIs and the map. So I left it vague before, but let's talk about what these actually are. The purple icons are the beacons from the previous team that was sent to the island before you that had gone missing. The purple dot is actually their GPS tracker, and you want to go collect the GPS tracker. As you get closer to the purple icons, your GPS tracker will beep aggressively more and more until you get to it. Keep in mind, you are looking for a GPS locator from one of the previous team members. You are looking for a person that may have been left behind there. And again, these are one time. So once you collect the GPS locator from the person that had it, it'll go away, and you can get special items from this that are all relatively useful. So it is useful to kind of go and grab these right away, because then you'll have benefits. Things like flashlights, a pistol that can really help you progress through the story. It's all optional. You don't need them, but it's nice to have them. So it's nice to go pick up these GPS trackers. You also see caves on your map that will look like this stone arch. And when you walk up to them, it is actually a load in. So some of these you'll have to break open and you'll want to go inside. But once you go inside, there's things to explore. Now, most of these are just optional loot caves. There are a few of them that are important, that have key items in them that you desperately need. So you do want to explore caves regularly. You'll get enemies in there sometimes. It's almost like a dungeon. But there are a few of them that you desperately need to do in order to progress, because they have key items. All of them are located near the west side of the island over here. So you want to just be exploring that and looking at it. That said, the green dots are your main story points of interest. You need to be visiting all of these, and you do have to visit all of them in order to finish the story. So if you're looking for your general heading, your main objective, it is to be able to get through all of these green dots. Now, when you get to them, some of them have requirements of key items in order to gain access. Things like a key card or a specific item like a shovel, things like that. So you will need to have those items in order to finish it, but you're welcome to visit them to see which ones require what items and whatnot. Your biggest first hurdle, if you're looking for main objective, is going to be finding the rebreather, which allows you to stay underwater longer, the rope gun, which allows you to go across zip lines, and then the shovel, which allows you to dig up items that are under the ground. That will give you through your first main part of the story, and then from there, you'll be visiting the rest of the green dots on your map in order to find out what's inside of them and complete the main story. So that would be my recommendation, is just to visit the purple icons, get the one-time items, get those off your map, visit some caves to get some key items, and then go start visiting all of the green dots on your map in order to see what's there and what you need in order to progress through them. Now let's talk through survival. The first thing you're gonna need is a shelter in order to sleep away your restfulness, your tiredness, but also in order to change the time of day when things get really dark at night. You will want to kind of build that up. The easiest one to build, which is in your construction manual here, is going to be your basic tent, which requires a tent item, a tarp, and a stick. So all you have to do is you have to put down a tarp on the ground, and this, hello friend, put this down on the ground, and then you grab a stick in your inventory, and then you put it up, and it'll give you an option to tent it up. And then anytime you have a tent location, it will allow you to save and sleep. Simply put a stick in your hand and go to the corner of the tarp, put in the stick and lift it up so that you can actually have a little rest here. You have the option to put 2 sticks, but it works fine if you have one. So your option is to press E in order to save your game if you want to, put that down, or you can press Z and hold it down in order to sleep. This will give you restfulness and will change the time of day. You can either you can sleep from day to night or night to day. It's kind of one-dimensional from that as it builds up. So you'll have that option to rest and bring up your sleep meter, which is super nice. An added benefit is you can see all rest locations on your map as little house icons. So because there aren't beacons in the game currently, or at least any that I've found, I've been using the tents as a way to mark places that I've been so that I can kind of see that. And it's also nice to save and rest before going into a dungeon to see if there's other things that, you know, if you have a way to, if anything goes wrong in the dungeon, you can just pop right back out. Next, you want to make a source of heat and a way to cook your food, which is a basic campfire. Again, in your build journal here, you can find different ways like basic fire, reinforced fire, things like that. And it's very easy. Just put a stick in your hand and then look down at the ground. You'll be able to break sticks. You just have to put two of them broken together and you can light it with your lighter in order to create a fire. And with this fire, you can interact with it in order to cook food. So usually you have to step away and come back to it, activate the fire. It'll bring out your inventory and then you can throw things into it to either stoke the fire, or if you have meat or things that you want to cook, you can do so using your inventory, and you close this by pressing G. Now let's talk about some of the best options for sustaining yourself. First is water. I haven't found a single source of water, either underground or above ground, that causes you harm. It's very easy to run over to a source of water, a river or a lake or a pond that gives you water, and you can go drink to restore your water. You can also later create a canteen, which keeps it with you, which is super nice. You have other options in the game, like drinks that can give you more energy and can give you hydration. So those are great options. But if you need to, just drink some water in order to get that. When it comes to food, if you're in a pinch, you can eat arms and legs, limbs. They will give you no health and no other benefit, but they will fill your belly, and they do need to be cooked first. So you want to light the fire and put the raw armor leg and eat it. Ideally, your best option is actually raw meat or raw fish. Small birds will give feathers, but they will not give meat. You can find meat from the bigger birds, from rabbits, squirrels, deer, moose. All of those can be options for meat. And then when you have the meat, come to the fire, activate it, bring out your inventory, and then throw the meat on the fire in order to cook it. You also have the option to fish. You'll find fish as an option as well. So you can use either Kelvin and say, hey, Kelvin, I need some fish. I need something to eat. Go find me fish, and he'll find a whole bunch. He's actually really good at fishing. You can also hunt animals using all range of weapons, harvest their body by going up to them and pressing E, and then using that in order to cook on the fire and eat. And it's great because the cooked meat will give you health back and also fill up your hunger meter, which is really nice. You can also find sustenance from various berries and things. You'll have to eat them first to see if they're worthwhile. You can find the blueberries are usually the most viable, as they give you a little bit of hydration and a little bit of energy, which is nice. But you can also find other things that will give you hunger or energy. You can mix them together for some really nice options. And also, if you're running low on sleep, you can drink energy drinks, eat energy bars, or you can also make energy mixes out of a combination of herbs that you'll find out in the area, like chicory and things like that. Put them together, combine them together into an energy mix. Depending on what you put in there will change how good they are. You'll notice how on the bottom right, my energy meter has a little pink on it. That is temporary energy that you get from eating the energy bonus items. For combat, you can swing with left click and you can block with right click to reduce damage. And you can do the same thing for animals that you want to harvest. Though I would recommend playing with either the spear or the bow to start with, because the range on the spear means that you can avoid getting hit, and the range on the bow means that you can completely avoid getting hit, and it's great for farming. It is also useful because you can do headshots in this game, which means enemies will die very fast if you have a bow, and you can hit them right in the head, and you can get your arrows back. One of the easiest ways to play in the early game is to collect small rocks, sticks, and feathers from birds to make stone arrows. Use your wood bow, and then you can just easily just take out scores of enemies by shooting them in the head, collecting the arrow, or shooting them in the chest and collecting the arrows, and then crafting more. And that way you can avoid melee combat until you get more gear or more armor or more practice. When it comes to armor, you have several options. You can make leaf armor, which is the weakest. You can also make hide armor. Hide only drops from the larger prey, like deer and moose. You won't get it from rabbits. You'll have to do the bigger creatures, the bigger mammals, in order to get hide on that. You can combine that with hide. You can also make bone armor. You'll get special armor from the mutants, and there's even better armor that you can craft later using more technical options as well. The way armor works is it'll just take a hit for you and you won't take any damage, but the armor will be destroyed in the process. The better the armor, the more hits it can take before it breaks. but that's what those little marks are down in the bottom right, is every time an armor piece breaks, it's gone forever, it's destroyed, and you'll have to replace it if you want to be more durable. Keep in mind that the enemies will learn from you, so if you become violent and start attacking them, they will learn from that and become more aggressive. They'll also grow in numbers. And as you level up, you can see that my strength meter is going up as I do actions. As that strength goes up, you'll level. The level and the overall progress of the story will level up the environment. You'll get more and more dangerous enemies around you that are more aggressive. And so you'll want to kind of play around that to just be aware that things can get pretty dicey. It's easier when you start, but then gets pretty dicey later on the more you play the game. And that's the beginner's guide for Sons of the Forest. The video's getting pretty long as it is already, so I'll leave it there. Hopefully this helps you get started in the game and demystify some of the things and questions you might have on how it works and what to do. So if you found value in the video, leave a like down below. As always, if you have any questions or comments for me, you can find me live. I'd love to hear from you on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come by and say howdy. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.